She had learned, over decades, to make her face neutral. A surface calm. A practiced stillness. It was a skill drilled into her long before the uniform, long before the medals, long before the rank that people saluted without knowing her name. Today, it failed her. The cuffs were too tight. Not painfully, not yet, but insistently. Cold metal pressing into skin that had carried the weight of command and consequence and unslept nights. The officer's fingers had lingered a fraction too long, as if confirming something he already believed. She stood on the curb beneath a sky the color of old paper, her breath slow, measured, because she knew how panic moved. She knew how fear traveled through the body like a signal flare. General Mara Ellison stared at the cracked concrete between her shoes. She counted breaths. 1, 2. She did not look at the faces around her. Not yet. She had spoken. That was the crime, apparently. Spoken back. Not shouted. Not cursed. Just words shaped carefully, politely even, after being told she did not belong on that street. After being asked where she was really going. After the pause when she said her last name and the man with the badge decided it sounded like a lie. She could feel the uniform beneath her coat. The weight of it. The history stitched into seams. She had put on civilian clothes today because she was tired of being recognized, tired of the double takes, tired of the careful recalibration people did when they realized who she was. She wanted coffee. She wanted quiet. She wanted 5 minutes of being nobody. A patrol car idled nearby, engine murmuring. Another officer stood a few feet away, arms crossed, eyes sliding past her like she was furniture. A woman across the street had stopped walking and was pretending to scroll on her phone. Everyone knew how this worked. Watch, but don't see. Mara thought of her mother's hands. How they trembled when Mara was small, when sirens passed too close to home. How her mother would say, low and urgent, keep your voice soft. Keep your eyes down. How that advice had followed Mara into classrooms, briefing rooms, war zones. Be excellent. Be calm. Be less. The officer nearest her cleared his throat. He said, already tired of her. You need to relax. She almost laughed. It rose in her chest like a bubble and burst silently. Relax. As if she had not built her entire life on the architecture of restraint. I am relaxed, she said. Her voice did not shake. That surprised her. He leaned closer. Talking back isn't helping. There it was. The small, sharp pivot. The moment when the narrative closed its fist. Talking back. As if speech itself were a provocation. As if dignity were defiance. Mara felt something loosen inside her. Not anger. Something older. A quiet grief, familiar as an old scar. She had bled for a country that did not recognize her without instruction. She had signed letters that sent other people's children into danger and carried that weight home like a second spine. She had earned every inch of authority she held, and still, here she was, wrists bound on a city sidewalk because her tone had not pleased a stranger. She thought of the phone in her pocket. The one they had not taken yet. She thought of the numbers memorized, the way names could open doors or slam them shut. She thought of the promise she had made herself years ago, standing in a mirror after her first promotion. You will not use power to humiliate. You will not make small men smaller. A wind moved through the street, lifting a scrap of paper that skittered past her feet. The sky darkened a shade. The officer adjusted his grip on the cuffs, a reflex, not cruelty. He was not a monster. That was the worst part. He was ordinary. Can I make a call? She asked. He hesitated, then nodded, a shrug in the motion. 1. Her hands were cuffed, so another officer held the phone. The screen lit her face briefly, a ghostly blue. She spoke a name. No rank. No explanation. Just the name, and then silence while the line connected. Her heart beat once, hard. Twice. The officer holding the phone rolled his eyes. He had heard this before. He had seen bluffs crumble. Mara waited. She listened to the hum of the city, to her own breath, to the weight of years pressing down and lifting, somehow, at the same time. When the voice on the other end answered, she did not announce herself. She did not threaten. She simply said, I need you to listen. The officer's posture changed first. A subtle thing. A straightening. The eyes sharpening, as if the world had tilted and he was trying to keep his balance. He glanced at his partner. The air shifted. The idle engine sounded suddenly too loud. Mara said nothing more. She did not need to. The silence did the work. The kind of silence that arrives after truth has entered a room and refuses to leave. When the phone was handed back, the cuffs were still on. No apology. No explanation. Just a delay. A waiting. She stood there, bound and breathing, feeling the old grief settle into a new shape. Not hope. Not triumph. Something colder. The knowledge that even now, even after everything, she had needed permission to be believed. Officer Daniel Rourke had learned to read rooms. Interrogation rooms. Kitchens after domestic calls. Hospital corridors where bad news hung like dust. Streets, too. He read shoulders, hands, the space people left between themselves and trouble. This street had changed. He felt it before he understood it. The woman stood still, wrists bound, face composed in a way that unsettled him. Not the brittle calm of someone about to snap. Not fear. Something trained. Something disciplined. It made him aware of his own breathing, suddenly loud in his chest. His radio crackled. A short burst. Then silence. Rourke shifted his weight. He told himself nothing had happened yet. Calls were made all the time. Names were dropped. 90% of them evaporated under daylight. He had been right before. He had been wrong before. The city was full of both. Hold tight, he muttered, to no one in particular. The woman, listen, she had said, kept her gaze lowered. The cuffs glinted at her wrists. Rourke told himself the procedure was sound. She had been uncooperative. She had challenged him in front of witnesses. Authority was fragile. If you let it bend, it broke. Still, the silence pressed. The other officer, Perez, glanced at him. A question without words. Rourke shook his head once. Wait. He thought of his father, a cop until his knees gave out. Thought of the kitchen table lectures about respect. About how you didn't let people talk you down. About how the badge was the thin line between order and chaos. Rourke had believed it. Still did, mostly. The radio crackled again. This time, his name. Rourke, the dispatcher said, voice tight. Stand by. His stomach dropped, a small, precise sensation. He looked at Alyson. She had not moved. The calm on her face felt heavier now, like a door closed gently but firmly. Stand by for what? He asked. There was a pause. Long enough to be deliberate. You're going to want to listen. The words landed wrong. Rourke swallowed. He gestured for Perez to step closer. The street seemed to lean in. Even the woman across the way had stopped pretending to scroll. A new voice came over the radio. Older. Controlled. Not local. Rourke felt the distance in it, the weight of rooms with no windows. Officer Rourke, the voice said. This is Colonel Ames. Pentagon liaison. The badge on Rourke's chest felt suddenly absurd. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Sir. You have detained General Mara Alyson, the voice continued, not a question. Release her immediately. Remove the restraints. Do not speak unless spoken to. Rourke's ears rang. He looked at Alyson again. At the way she stood, spine straight, breath even. General. The word did not fit the scene. It cracked it open. Yes, sir, he said, because his mouth knew how to say that even if his mind did not. His hands shook as he reached for the cuffs. The metal resisted, then yielded. The sound was small. Embarrassingly loud. He stepped back, unsure where to put himself. Alyson rubbed her wrists once. No drama. No accusation. She did not look at him. That was worse. Officer, the voice on the radio said. You will file a report. Your supervisor has been notified. Internal affairs will follow. Rourke nodded though no one could see. Understood. The radio went quiet. The patrol car idled. The city resumed its breath. Perez exhaled. Jesus, he whispered. Rourke felt hollow. He wanted to say something. An apology. An explanation. The words crowded his throat and refused to form. He had followed procedure. Hadn't he? He had seen attitude and responded. He had felt challenged and tightened his grip. That was training. That was habit. Ellison turned then. Looked at him fully for the first time. Her eyes were tired. Not angry. That, too, felt like an indictment. You should loosen the cuffs sooner, she said. Her voice was quiet. They teach you that? He nodded, too fast. Yes, She hesitated. A flicker of something crossed her face. Not mercy. Not forgiveness. Just a passing recognition. Practice it, she said. Then she walked away. Just that. No escort. No glance back. Rourke stood on the curb, hands empty, badge heavy. He thought of the report he would write. The language he would use to sand down the truth. He thought of his father's voice. Of the line between order and chaos. It felt thinner now. Or maybe it always had been. As the patrol car door closed, Rourke caught sight of his reflection in the window. For a moment, he did not recognize himself. Mara did not go for coffee. She walked. Past the place she had intended to sit. Past the familiar corner where the barista knew her order. Her wrists still tingled, a faint echo like a memory that refused to stay put. She flexed her fingers as she moved, feeling the city under her feet, the uneven truth of sidewalks and people and small, persistent noises. She needed motion. Stillness would turn inward, and she did not trust where it might land. She stopped at a park 2 blocks away. It was not a beautiful park. A few tired trees. A bench with peeling paint. A trash can leaning slightly to the left. Children's voices carried from somewhere beyond the fence, laughter thin and bright. She sat anyway. For a long time, she did nothing. Her phone vibrated once. She did not look. Twice. She let it buzz itself quiet. The call had been made. The machinery had engaged. She knew how it worked. She had authorized it enough times in other contexts, other lives. Now it would move without her. Paperwork would accumulate. Careers would tilt. Meetings would be scheduled behind closed doors. Words like protocol and review would be spoken with careful mouths. She pressed her palms to her knees. The fabric of her coat was rough. Grounding. She thought, absurdly, of a briefing years ago, standing in front of a room of faces that waited for certainty. She had spoken about accountability then. About how systems failed not in grand explosions but in small, unexamined habits. How harm often wore a uniform and called itself normal. She had believed every word. She still did. A woman jogged past, ponytail swinging. An older man fed pigeons with a seriousness that bordered on reverence. Life went on, stubborn and indifferent. That, too, felt like a lesson. Her phone vibrated again. She sighed and checked it. A message from her sister. Just one line. You okay? Mara stared at the screen. The question felt too large for the space provided. She typed, erased, typed again. Finally, I'm fine. She sent it and immediately hated the lie, but not enough to correct it. She remembered the first time she had been saluted by mistake. A young private, eyes wide, hand snapping up before his brain caught up. She had smiled then. Told him to relax. The memory tasted different now. Another vibration. This one a call. She recognized the number and almost declined. Almost. She answered. Mara, said the voice. Familiar. Measured. It's done. She closed her eyes. That was fast. It wasn't just today, he said. You know that. Yes. She did. Patterns revealed themselves to those who looked. Reports stacked like quiet accusations. This moment had simply been loud enough to force listening. There will be consequences, he continued. Reviews. Suspensions. Possibly more. She breathed in. The park smelled faintly of damp leaves and old coffee. I didn't ask for careers to end, she said. No, he agreed. You asked to be heard. She almost laughed again. The sound caught in her throat and softened into something else. "I didn't even ask that," she said. "I just spoke." Silence on the line. Not uncomfortable. Respectful. "I'm sorry," he said, finally, "that it took this." Mara opened her eyes. Watched a pigeon hop closer, bold. "So am I." They ended the call without ceremony. She sat longer. Let the afternoon thin. The children's voices faded. The pigeons scattered. Shadows stretched. The city cooled. When she stood, her legs protested. She welcomed the ache. It reminded her she was still here, still moving. She walked home slowly, choosing side streets. At her door, she paused. Listened to the quiet inside. She had earned this quiet, too, she thought. Earned it the hard way. Inside, she set her coat down. Washed her hands. The water ran warm over skin that had felt cold metal hours earlier. She watched it swirl down the drain, carrying nothing visible away. Her phone lay on the counter. Another message had arrived. Not from family. From an unknown number. She hesitated, then opened it. "Thank you," it read. Nothing more. She stared at the word. Singular. Heavy. She did not know who had sent it. A witness. An officer. Someone who had seen and decided not to look away next time. The uncertainty pressed gently against her chest. She placed the phone face down. That night, sleep came in fragments. Faces without names. Streets without corners. The sound of cuffs closing, opening. In the dark, she pressed her wrists together, then apart, testing the memory. It lingered. Near morning, she woke fully. Lay still. Listened to her own breathing. Outside, a siren passed, distant. She did not flinch. Not this time. But she did not relax either. Daniel Rourke packed his locker slowly. Not because there was much to take, but because speed felt inappropriate. The station hummed around him with the familiar noises of chairs scraping, radios murmuring, someone laughing too loudly at something unfunny. His badge lay in his palm, heavier than it had ever felt on his chest. He turned it once, thumb tracing the edge where years of use had dulled the shine. No one stopped him. That, more than anything, settled the truth. The review had been brief. Words chosen carefully, like tools laid out on a table. Failure of judgment. Pattern of conduct. Loss of public trust. No raised voices. No anger. Just a narrowing of options until there were none left. Suspension pending further action. His gun surrendered. His access revoked. Careers, he now understood, did not end with explosions. They ended with signatures. He had wanted to argue. To explain the moment as it had felt from inside his skin. The challenge. The instinct. The training that said control first, questions later. But each explanation sounded thinner aloud. Each justification collapsed under its own weight. He signed where they told him to sign. Outside, the air was colder than he expected. He stood on the steps and watched people pass without looking at him. The city did not notice departures. It absorbed them. He thought of the woman's wrists. The faint red lines. How she had said, "You should loosen the cuff sooner." Not as a rebuke. As instruction. The memory lodged in him, sharp and exact. He wondered how many times he had tightened first and considered later. How many moments had felt forgettable to him and permanent to someone else. At home, the apartment smelled like stale coffee and detergent. He set the box of belongings on the table and sat across from it, hands folded. The silence pressed. He turned on the radio, then turned it off again. He did not deserve noise yet. His phone buzzed. His father's name lit the screen. Rourke hesitated before answering. "I heard," his father said. No accusation. Just fact. Rourke closed his eyes. "Yeah." A pause. The older man breathed. "You okay?" The question landed differently now. Rourke searched himself for an honest answer. "I don't know," he said. "That's something," his father replied. "It's a start." After the call, Rourke sat until the light shifted. He opened the box. Photographs. Commendations. A folded note from a kid he had once helped find his way home. Proof of good done, not enough to erase the other column. He lined the items up neatly, as if order might still matter. Across the city, Mara Ellison stood in a conference room that smelled faintly of carpet cleaner and old paper. She listened more than she spoke. When she did speak, it was precise. Measured. She described sensations, not accusations. Cold metal. A word used like a weapon. Silence that pressed. She did not name the officers. She named the moment. When it was over, she walked out alone. No escort. No applause. Just the quiet hallway and the soft click of doors closing behind her. She felt emptied. Not relieved. The work was never clean. That evening, she returned to the small park. Sat on the same bench. The paint flaked beneath her fingers. She watched the light thin again. A child's laughter drifted, then faded. She did not check her phone. Rourke walked too, later, aimless. He passed the street where it had happened. The curb looked ordinary. He stood there for a minute, then another. Nothing marked the spot. No plaque for mistakes. No outline for lessons learned too late. He loosened his hands at his sides. Practiced the motion. Open. Relax. Again. The city breathed around them both, unchanged. Somewhere between a bench and a curb, a silence settled. Not healing. Not punishment. Just the weight of what remained.